Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another amazing episode on the Unleashing Potentials podcast. My name is Bernadette Desir, and I'm your host. And joining me today is Justin. How are you?
Doing good, Bernadette. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. How do I pronounce your last name?
So my last name is Boyum. It's actually, I
William.
think it's a Norwegian in its origins, but it's
Oh,
Boyum.
okay.
How you say it?
Boyum. That's really cool. That's really, really cool. So where are you tuning in from?
I'm tuning in to you from Austin, Texas, here in the United States. So a little
Mm.
bit warmer than where you're at up there in Canada, I'm sure. So
Yes, much warmer. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So Justin, can you start by telling us who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. And one, by the way, I just want to just appreciate you for having me on your channel. Like you've got this
Mhm.
amazing content you've been doing. You've been interviewing all these people and sharing messages and helping people to unleash their potential, right? Which I
Yes.
love, right? I love the name of it. And so I
Thank
just
you.
I just want to honor you for giving me the space to
Thank you
come on
so
your channel
much.
first.
Thank you.
And so a little bit about me. I actually formerly out of the U.S. Military in the Army as an officer. And for the last 4 years, I have been helping entrepreneurs to grow their businesses, very specifically in the online virtual event space. So we help put together
Mhm.
events that help people scale their business and serve more of their people and just have a lot more fun doing business. That's kind of really what we're doing, but that really stems from what I learned in the military about how to structure and systematize things, get it
Mhm.
cut right through to like what's really important to be doing. I'd spent
Mhm.
years in corporate America, just kind of bouncing around, not really finding my way, got into the online coaching space and
Mhm.
experienced what most people do, where there's this up and down to doing business. And
Mhm.
back in 2020 during COVID, having to really transition more into a virtual way of doing business because I could no longer go and like physically network the same way and stumbled upon virtual events and it's been tons and tons of fun. So we just help people really monetize their channels or their followings or really finally fine tune and scale it so that they can generate more revenue than most people do in a year. Just doing that. So that's
Well,
what I do.
well, I know where to go to next. So yeah, because I'm just floating, sinking here
Yep.
and there with social media stuff. So much has changed over the years.
Mhm.
Would you agree?
100%. Like it's always changing. I mean, I don't know, if you were raised in like the 80s and 90s, right? Technology was really starting to boom. But
Hmm.
if you remember, we still had all these big, giant physical things on our desks and we had like disks that we had to carry. Like there's no cloud and
Yeah.
it just rapidly changed. Then social media hit in the early 2000s and it just
Hmm.
scales. Now we have AI that everybody has access to. So it's only going to continue to change and if
Hmm.
you're not adaptable and doing things that will set you apart, you'll get lost in the noise, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to be willing to take action, and that's what I appreciate about podcasts like yours. You're taking
Thank
action
you.
and you're putting it out there, but you've got to have the right strategy. Otherwise, there's everybody's got podcasts now, right? I mean, podcasting was relatively new not that long ago.
Yeah.
And now it's a very popular form of medium, which I love, by the way. I love listening to podcasts and checking them out. And so it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too. Do you have a podcast?
I do not have a podcast. I don't have one specifically. I love helping the helpers, and so I just find that it's much more fun to come on to them. I probably should have a podcast and do that. And when I do finally, and I probably will one day launch it and kind of combine that with like maybe a YouTube channel, and you'll be one of my first calls. We'll have you on there too.
Oh,
So,
wow. That's awesome.
but I just love going on and meeting with other people. I love kind of talking about different topics or sharing what I can do
Mhm.
or learning what other people, and it's just more fun to do that
Yeah.
on the podcast that are out there, right?
Yeah,
So
that's awesome. Yeah. You ready to
for
get
me, for me anyway.
yeah. You ready to get personal? Not too personal, but um I'm
Fire
curious to
away.
know more about you. What was it like for you growing up? What was your childhood like? And anything else you're ready to share? Go ahead.
Sure. I mean, if we want to go to the way back, right? I was just raised here in Austin, Texas. So I come from kind of an interesting background where Austin is a little bit different demographic from the rest of the state of Texas in many ways, but it's still Texas, right? And I've always loved it here. I love that you have space and freedom, so
Mhm.
it's just always been fun. But I didn't go like a traditional education route, like most people go to like typical high school and then they go on to college or whatever
Mhm.
here in the States. I actually was homeschooled for many years. I had a bad experience when I was a small kid. I don't really remember it. I can just know what I was told at this point, where I had some bad teachers. And so me and my siblings were homeschooled for many, many years until I was in basically what would be considered junior high. I think I was 11, 12 years old until I got into public school again. We went to a small, what's called a charter school, which is kind of like a hybrid between private and public schools. We had some connections and we knew the people who were administrating it. And so it was just a fun experience. So I was part of, even though I was in a major metro and
Yeah.
part of like a huge city, my graduating class that I was a part of was only 16 people, right? So I was one of 16 seniors,
Oh,
right? So it's
wow.
really, really, really strange. I played things like, here in Texas, American football is the most
Mhm.
popular sport as it is in many states, but it's very popular here. I
Mhm.
played actually a six-man football version of what's typically 11-man football.
Oh, wow.
And so it was just it's a because small schools they can't have enough players to be able to field a big team, so they had this alternate. So we got to do
Mhm.
that. It was fun. I was lucky enough to be plucked away to go to college at a school here in Texas and learned all about like logistics and getting things. I got an opportunity to get an ROTC scholarship and joined the army, and then the rest is kind of rock and roll history from there. That's kind of where my starting began. But I was still green. I never really expected to be in the army. You ever like have that happen, Bernadette, where you're like, I'm just kind of going where what happens, and I never really. This isn't necessarily what I set out to
Yeah.
do, but here's this
Yeah.
door, and I'm going to walk through it. You have that ever happened to
Mhm.
you? Like that's kind of what happened to me. I was like, my family was middle class. It's not like we were suffering, but we didn't have money for me to go to college. So I got an opportunity to interview for a scholarship and landed it and joined the army, even though it was never really something that I was a huge like,
Mhm.
oh, I'm going to be in the army. It's just an opportunity that I got, and I'm grateful to have had it. But I was very green. I didn't really know much about it. I don't know how I managed to slip through the cracks and get there. So I had a
Yeah.
kind of a rough start to that, learning all the decorum and kind of how things
Mhm.
worked. And even my experience in the military was a little bit odd in that I didn't go the traditional route and kind of moved into more of a like I was working with more of the senior leadership more often, so I didn't have the typical like, hey, I'm going to be in the room with all the soldiers, which is what
Mhm.
most young officers get to do.
Mhm.
Um, but I think that served me really well because I got used to talking to people who were way above my pay grade and and appealing to many different people. So when I got out of the military, it was not a problem for me to talk to people who were like maybe a CEO or something, right? It's no problem. I was used to talking to the general, which is the CEO of the division or whatever.
Mhm.
So anyway, that's a little bit of background. I might have gone a little far. I'd
Oh, no.
certainly be happy to go into any detail that
Oh,
you'd
no,
like
it's
to
all
know,
good.
but let me
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. How long were you in the military for?
I was active duty for about 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah, technically the way I did it was I was here in the States we have, there's like the normal like active duty military, and then we also have the National Guard and the Army
Mhm.
Reserves. I was technically a member of the Texas National Guard, but I took a support orders. They had options like if you wanted to still go full-time active duty, you could do that and
Mhm.
support. I did that. So I technically, even though I was a National Guardsman, I was not
Mhm.
actually ever in the Guard. I was always on active duty,
Oh,
which was
okay.
fine. It worked out for me because it meant that I could, if I had the decision when it was time, I could actually just leave because I had served more than
Mhm.
my time that I needed to
Mhm.
pay for my school. So I'm very
Oh, okay.
grateful for the
Yeah.
experience, and it allowed me to get to where I am now. It's part of the story, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you had to leave the States for the work that you were doing there?
what do you mean? No, I mean,
Mm.
I was in Kansas. I was stationed in Kansas
Oh,
with
okay.
active, like I was with a different unit, but I
Mm-hmm.
was just technically the Texas National Guard, right? So it's
Oh,
how
okay.
it worked. So I mean, I still wore the same patches and stuff as everybody. Just it was just a paperwork issue. It really nothing was really necessarily different about that part of it. It was just administratively, if you looked at it, it was be kind of like
Mm-hmm.
a hot mess. And
Mm-hmm.
so
Yeah, yeah.
all kinds of craziness happened. I mean, I ended up deploying with that unit, but because of the way the paperwork goes, I should have never been over there. And so, but whatever, everything's fine. It worked out.
Oh, nice. Yeah, overall, what are some experiences that you've gained from that journey of your life?
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway that I get from something like the military, and I do talk about it quite often with what I do now, but it's
Mhm.
realistically, you just have to be adaptable, right? You talked about how everything's changed. Everything
Mhm.
is always changing. And one thing that you learn in the military, like you're only going to be with a unit typically for
Mhm.
or in a position for like 12 to 18 months in most
Mhm.
cases. and you're going to be doing something new, right? So as soon as you kind of figure it out and hit your stride, they move you to something else.
Yeah.
And then you're always in different cycles. You're either training to go somewhere, or you're at a deployment, or you're ramping down and getting ready to start training for the next one. So it's
Hmm.
you just have to be on your toes. You're going to get promoted. You're going to get different duties. They're going to adapt, and they're going to have new equipment that needs to be learned, and you need to be trainable. So the biggest takeaway I could take of is like, hey, listen, whatever's in front of you, there's a way to solve that problem. You just have to be malleable enough to understand what your strengths are and use them. And then if you need to, go ask for help, because there's somebody who's been in a situation like that one. Surprisingly, as much as I just kind of talked about it like it might be chaotic, there's almost zero guesswork when it comes to the military, because it's just so structured. So if you've got those fundamentals down, then it's pretty easy to be flexible.
Hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Now let's talk about your business that you do. How do you help clients and who do you help?
It's a great question. Well, typically what we're doing is we're working with coaches, entrepreneurs, consultants, agencies, or people with channels like yourself, like
Hmm.
if they have a YouTube channel, or they've got a podcast, or a newsletter. And what we're doing is we're helping them to monetize what they do, and with the audience that they're building. And it doesn't have to be somebody who necessarily already has built the audience. It's just if they have an offer out there and they really want to monetize it. The biggest challenge that we're seeing is a lot of people have a gift, right? They
Yeah.
have something that
Yeah.
they're really good at, and they want to do more of it, but they're not necessarily the greatest at, say, doing sales, or even doing like traditional marketing.
Yeah.
And I think that's a tried and true. I'm not telling you something that nobody's ever heard before. And
Mhm.
but the challenge is like there's so much noise. There's like, oh well, I need to have a podcast. I need to have an email list. I need to do all these things. And that may all
Mhm.
be true. Those are all really good things. But once you have that, once you're building the mechanisms to gain attention, what do you then do with it to move them from a lead or a subscriber to a customer?
Mm.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
the biggest way that I know to describe, like most people will tell you, like if you're building, like let's just say a coaching business or a consulting business, the
Hmm.
best path to do that is with a high ticket offer, right?
Hmm.
And what I mean by a high ticket offer is anything that would cost, like say, more than $2,000, US, in a single purchase, right? And usually, typically, we're looking at like 5 to 10,000 or more dollars for your services. That's a
Oh.
high ticket offer, and the reason that that's what a lot of people like the Russell Brunsons of the world or the Grant Cardones, they'll tell you that that's what you need to do, is because they have higher margins. You don't have to work with as many clients to be profitable,
Hmm.
and you can get faster results for everybody because you're having typically a much more intimate relationship with them. And
Hmm.
then you can start to build everything else. A lot like the old way was, well, let me start with these, like I'll do free stuff or cheap stuff, right? Just to get
Hmm.
some momentum and build it up. But then logistically, that can become a nightmare as you're working it out. So you want to start with a high ticket offer. And even the ones who do have some of those smaller courses or something that they can sell still have their businesses really built on the high ticket premium. So
Hmm.
that's the best path. We start with the high ticket. The other thing is we found is that the fastest way to create customers is through events. And that's where the most significant changes happen in someone's life.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
maybe they go to church. That's an event. That can be a life-changing event.
Hmm.
You can go to a seminar that's maybe about personal development. That's what happened to me. I was in corporate America, not so happy. I went to a personal development seminar that was 3 or 4 days and really saw the shifts of what I should be doing and why I was not so happy working in corporate America to make that shift. That happened through an event, right?
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
the challenge then becomes, if I want to have an event,
Hmm.
well, then I might have to schedule a room somewhere. I have to promote it. I have to make sure that the people who want to be there can travel to it and they have accommodations. I got to worry about food. I have all these mechanisms. I got to have sound equipment. I've got to have everything I can so it can have a successful event. It became a little bit cost ineffective for people to
Yeah.
do. Like you had to have a very successful business first to be able to do that. And I'm not saying that like one that's always going to be better if you've already got the audience,
Hmm.
or you've already got the mechanisms. But now we can do all of that virtually, right? It's talking about adapting. We can create the same experience, but we can do it online. So
Hmm.
if the fastest way to grow a business is with a high ticket offer and the fastest way to get more premium clients is with an event, we just combine both of them together. And so instead of let's get you on my email list and let me nurture you to death for the next 7 months to 7 years, what if I could just bring you into a room and let you experience everything you need to experience so that you can make a clear decision on what you're doing? And what we see is that more people will enroll in your coaching program or your consulting program or your agency service
Mhm.
doing it that model than they would with a typical, like, hey, watch my free training and then book a call with me.
Yeah.
And then the other advantage is obviously because you're doing it all at once with everybody, you don't have to do sales calls.
Mhm.
So it's more time efficient, it's more cost efficient, and it's more fun to do because you're actually engaging with your people rather than sending them a bunch of stuff to read.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's it. Does that crystallize how we help
It
people if we
does.
do
Yeah.
it that way?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What happens when business, branding, and monetization gone wrong?
Well,
Right?
well, nothing's going to happen, right? If you're trying to sell the wrong thing to the wrong people, they're going to say no to you, right? But the good
Mhm.
news is, like I'm talking about doing something all in one day. Like you could do like
Mhm.
a half day thing, a full day thing, maybe even a multi-day experience, but you're going to do all your sales all at once. Well,
Mhm.
when you do a 1 day virtual event, even if it were to not go well, it only costs you 1 day.
Yeah.
Whereas if I said, hey, I'm gonna hire an agency service and I'm gonna
Mhm.
spend $5,000 to set it up plus ad spend or whatever, and I'm gonna get calls booked. And let's say I get 30 calls
Mhm.
booked, which would be
Mhm.
awesome. Right. Most of the time when you run ads, by the way, like it's like a 5% success rate to get somebody onto a call. And that's if you're really, really good. So you're talking
Mhm.
about spending a lot of money to get that. And you're also going to have people who don't show up to their call or they reschedule or they're not ready or they're not even a good fit, right? You don't know that until you really get them onto the phone to figure that out. And
Mhm.
then you're only going to probably close, even if you're good, you're only going to enroll like 10% of those. So
Mhm.
you're spending a lot of money. And that's why you have to have a high ticket offer because you have to have the margin side to justify that. And it would still totally be worth it, by the way,
Yeah.
if you did
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
Um, but again, I said 30 calls. So assuming they all show up, that's 30 hours that
Mhm.
you or your salesperson is going to have to spend on the phone. And they're not going to close as high a rate because it's still cold traffic. And
Yeah.
by the way, you must have a cold traffic system in order to have a business. We can't
Yeah.
rely on warm referrals, right?
Mhm.
That's awesome when they happen, but it's not typically repeatable and reliable. So you have
Yeah.
to have a cold system. That's why a lot of people run ads. And again, great strategy.
Mhm.
Well, what if instead you spent 1 day, even if I spent a full 8 hour day with them,
Mhm. Mhm.
that's 8 hours versus 30 hours, and you're going to probably enroll 20% or more into your high ticket program.
Mhm. Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
one's better to do? I think it's better to do the event.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Yeah.
right. And you don't
Yeah.
have to chase everybody down because they already know. Like you are going to know by the end of that time who should be your client and who shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I look at two things, quality and quantity.
Mm-hmm.
If someone wants to charge me money of any amounts to support what they're doing, if I'm not getting anything out of it to help me grow, to explore my potential, I'm not interested.
Right.
Right? Do you run into that with, people charging, but what are they charging for? Who is it benefiting?
Well, 100%. Like, let's take it this way. Let's just assume that you're looking for a coach, right? And if
Mhm.
you're going to get a one-on-one coach, it's probably going to be at least $5,000 to work with that person, right? If
Mhm.
they're good, right? If they're not
Mhm.
good, then, you have to question what you're going to be getting for your money, right? And listen, we're all in different spaces. Sometimes that's just what you got to do, right? And that's okay. There's
Yeah.
plenty of great coaches that are not
Mhm.
necessarily high ticket.
Mhm.
But let's just assume you're going to go do that. Well, you're going to go online, you're going to see their YouTube or you're going to see their webinar, or you're going to see their page
Mhm.
and watch something and then book a call. You
Mhm.
still don't really know them and you're immediately jumping on to a one-on-one discovery or strategy call,
Yeah.
and trying to figure out if this is the kind of person you just may not be ready yet to make that
Mhm.
investment. And there's a lot of pressure and you may not do it on purpose, but you're probably going to go, hey, I need to think about it. I need to really consider this. Maybe I'm going to consider some options. Let me get back to you. And you're not trying to do this on purpose, but you're probably not going to call them back, right? You're going to end up making the decision with the person who's in front of you exactly when you're ready.
Mhm.
And it may not be that person that you met with 3 months ago,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's the challenge of it.
Yeah.
And it's also a little bit invasive, right? Like
Mm.
Bernadette, like if you get on a discovery call, you're like, I have to really open myself up here to in order to get the value. And I don't know if I trust
Mhm.
this person yet to do that.
Mhm.
There's a whole lot of things going on, and there's a lot that we're hoping to be exactly right at exactly the right time when we book a call. Now, listen, you'll probably be on their email list. They'll email you once or twice a week, and maybe when you're ready, you will actually pull the
Mhm.
trigger on something.
Mhm.
Most people aren't doing that, and it's cumbersome to do that.
Mm,
What I'm saying is if you're going to do what we call a virtual event, which is a much longer experience and
mhm.
it's immersive, like it's going to be fun, engaging, you're going to get questions answered, but you're
Yeah.
not going to be doing it on a one-on-one, let me share everything about myself
Yeah.
environment.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can then experience it. It's not invasive, it's fun. And by the way, if you're not actually interested in what the person's doing through the event, you're not going to come,
Yeah.
right? You're not going to go waste their time. How many times if you've seen like and you get on like someone gets on the phone and they're wasting your time because they don't know any better, right? But
Yeah.
if you make a clear offer of like, hey, you want to know more about this subject? Here's our event that we're doing. We're going to share everything with you. And yeah, it's
Mhm.
going to be multiple days or it's going to be a full day that we're going to spend with you. You're not coming to that unless you actually care about the subject,
Yeah.
right? But I might go spend 20 minutes on the phone with somebody for a discovery call just to check it out,
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I
right? And
agree.
I'm not really even very serious. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
It's
So
also
that's why this is a
discerning.
it's a
Yeah.
great attraction and filtering and conversion model
Yeah.
that solves all of those problems. You don't waste your time with anybody who's not serious.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Yeah. It's also discerning what information we take in and leave out. And
Mhm.
I've I've had people call me that I don't even know, and they're trying to sell me something. I'm like,
Mhm.
"Who are you? What company are you from?" And when I say I'm not interested, they're like, "No, no, 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 but we have this on sale." And I said, "I'm not interested."
Yeah, you're talking
And
about
they
like in the
kept going,
DMs.
and I just hang up. And that's why I'm a black sheep because if I say no, it's no. If
Right.
I'm not interested, I'm not. Unfortunately, most people don't want to hurt people's feelings. They don't want to feel
Mhm.
guilty because of not saying yes.
Right.
How can someone build that trust in themselves to realize, hey, this product is not for me?
Well, so like a product like what I'm talking about, could you give
Yeah.
me a little bit more of it, for instance?
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
a bit of what you're talking about, but kind of in general with business and advertisement, if that makes sense.
well, the only way to figure that out is for them to actually spend time with it.
Mm,
Now you can cut right to the core, right? Like, for me, like if I'm talking to a coach or a consultant, it's like, hey, would you be interested in a way to generate $50,000 or $100,000 or more in sales in a single day
mhm. Yeah.
without having to do a traditional sales call? Is that something you're interested in? Well, that's
Mhm.
a pretty easy, clear yes or no. If you want to make more money and have more clients, you're going to say yes to something like that. If you're
Yeah.
not really interested
Yeah.
in doing that, that's okay, right? It really just depends.
Mm,
Um, with what I'm talking about, like we could run an event that actually shares with exactly how that works,
mhm.
take them through the process. The information is not what people need.
Mm,
It's the results that they want. And so
mm.
you could go share everything about your process. Most people won't be able to take action on that. Have you ever like been to like a seminar and it was awesome and you learned lots of great things and you got a notebook full of notes and then you put it in the drawer and never to be seen again, right? It's what most people do. They have good
Mhm.
intentions, but most people won't take action. And most people will recognize that themselves.
Mhm.
And that if they
Mhm.
really want it, the best and fastest way to get what they want is to work with somebody that they know, like, and trust. And by the way, using an event model gives you a chance to actually showcase who you are and let them see that your service works and that they can trust you.
Yeah.
Obviously, you got to do it authentically. If you can't deliver on what you're talking about, you shouldn't do it. Right? Don't do that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but if you really are good at what you do and you can help people, then most people, that's the best way for them to experience it is to come and actually play with it for a little while. Right? It's like the
Mhm.
puppy principle. Have you heard of the puppy principle?
No.
Right? I don't know how it works in Canada, but here in the States, sometimes you might go to like a grocery store
Mhm.
and there'll be like a van in the parking lot and they've got the back open and it's somebody like has puppies for sale,
Mm. Mhm.
right? And and you're not planning on having a puppy that day,
Mhm.
but you walk by and they go and they've got a puppy and they're like, Bernadette, would you like to hold this puppy? And you're like, puppies are adorable. Like, yeah, of course I want to hold that puppy.
Yeah.
Right? It's amazing. Yeah, let me hold the puppy. And maybe, I don't know, right? I don't know what your favorite breed would be, but there might be a lab or a little
Mhm.
shepherd or something like that. They're always adorable and they're fun and they've got
Yeah.
personality. And you hold the puppy and it's on you and it smells like a puppy smells and it licks you and it's trying to play with you and it's making fun puppy noises. right? And
Yeah.
then right at that point, the person goes, "Would you like to buy the puppy?"
Mm. Yeah.
Right? It's because they know that you've got to have your hands on it to be able to play with
Mhm.
it, right? That's why car dealerships here sometimes might let you take a car home, let you
Mm.
go drive it home, let you go show it off to the wife and kids,
Yeah.
right? Or show to your friends. And now you've been
Mhm.
driving it and you've had it, and then they go, "Well, do you want to buy it?"
Yeah.
Right? Well, of course you
Yeah.
do, right?
Yeah.
If you can make it happen, if logistically it can happen. Same thing here.
Mhm.
If they're interested, they're going to show up, and then you can actually deliver some real value to them and help them make some progress towards their goal, and then
Mhm.
go invite them to the next step with you.
Mm.
And most people listen. You're still going to have less people enroll than
Mhm.
actually enroll, right? We're talking about 20, 30%. That's still just way better than 10%. Plus, you're
Mhm.
spending way less of your actual time to
Yeah.
do that because it's straight to the point and it's actually valuable. And by the way, the people who aren't ready yet are getting massive value from you, way
Mm.
better than they get from checking out your newsletter
Yeah.
because you're actually helping them that day. So
Mhm.
that's where I see the advantage. That's what can help people. And it's the same thing with anything. You're
Mhm.
gonna want to be able to put your hands on it. You want to
Mhm.
be able to know, does it actually work? Will it work for you? Do you have the right time and resources to be able to do anything? Like all of that can be addressed if you've got the time to do it. You're probably not going to have time to really address all of that on an initial 45-minute discovery call.
Mhm. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. How can we create radical changes in our lives to become expert at what we're passionate about?
I heard this from, I can't remember who I heard this from. I think I heard it from my mentor, so I'm not sure where it originates. But the idea is that you can become an expert if you've read like 3 books on a specific subject,
Mm.
right? So if you've like really read a book, like let's say you want to be an expert in sales. If you've read like 3 sales books, you know more than 99% of people about
Mhm.
that subject.
Mhm.
So most people don't have an issue of not being able to have an expert skill. It's just the momentum to actually take it seriously and go pro, right? Like
Mhm.
I wasn't like that. I wasn't a pro at being a military officer. I didn't take it seriously at first, right? And I
Yeah.
and I got myself into some trouble like doing it that way. But, then one day eventually you kind of grow up a little bit and then you do take it seriously. Well, it's not hard. Like if you really
Yeah.
are willing to spend the time to become you can become an expert over the weekend. 3 books is not hard. You can read a book a day if
Mhm.
you really wanted to do it.
Mhm.
So that's where you can become the expert. Well, it's not just a matter of being an expert, it's having the ability to actually deliver that expertise and do something with it.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is in any case. It's like, listen, I'm in the online business space, right? And we're kind of in that world, but this is the same thing if you were in like a corporate career where you're working for somebody else. Like you can go get whatever you want to go get. You can go demonstrate those skills. You just got to be willing to go and put
Mhm.
in the time to learn it and then install that, right? And actually use it.
Mhm.
Right. So that's where we come in. That's where my mission is. I love to let you just be the expert in what you are, right?
Mhm.
And you don't have to be a marketing and sales expert at the same time, unless that's just what your expertise is, right? Which is
Mhm.
fine.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so I would like you to just work with more of the people that you want to work with.
Yeah, 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 I agree. Thank you for sharing.
Mhm.
Let's talk about taking action despite of how we're feeling. An example is, you get people who wants to start a podcast and they got to 10 episodes and that's it.
Mhm.
You never see anything else for 2 years. It takes consistency and
Mhm.
passion and just exploring what could be, what can be. And yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that the way I've kind of looked at that, there's 3 major things that take in order to be successful. And what
Mhm.
you're talking about is what I would say the second thing is. The first thing that you need is clarity, right? If you want to start a podcast,
Yeah.
why? Why do you want to start a podcast,
Yeah.
right? What's the purpose of it? Like,
Yeah.
what's it going to allow you to do? What does
Mhm.
that allow you? Who is that going to allow you to be? Right. I think a lot of times we start thinking about like our purpose is to do something. A lot of times it's really actually to be something, right?
Mm.
And there's really a why behind even that. And so we really need to have some absolute clarity. Again, I don't want to totally belabor the fact that I'm from the military, but that's in spades. You've got a mission. The mission
Mhm.
is very important. It's very clear what you're supposed to do, and it's very clear why you're supposed to do it,
Yeah.
right? And even if you're not exactly sure of like, hey, this is going to accomplish this mission to be able to do another mission, you don't have to know necessarily that. In
Mhm.
the military, you know your actual mission is to defend freedom
Yeah.
here in the United States. That's a
Mhm.
very clear why. That's why a lot of people have tons of fulfillment. That's why a lot of veterans struggle when they get out because they suddenly don't have that purpose behind them.
Mhm. Mhm.
You must have the clarity of knowing exactly what you're doing, why you're doing it. Maybe it's because you want to raise your
Mhm.
kids better than your upbringing, right? And you want to be able to leave that imprint. Maybe you want to go and actually change the world in some way, in some
Mhm.
significant way. Maybe it's you want to build up a community. Maybe you're from a community that's had a really hard time and you want to be able to go be successful so you can put and invest back into that community to revitalize it. Right?
Mhm.
I don't know, right? You've got to make that decision. And listen, having a coach of some kind can help you to do that, right? And I would
Yeah.
100% encourage some kind of coaching there, right?
Mhm.
Or whatever you need to be able to get there, but definitely do the work on it.
Yeah.
Once
Yeah.
you know that though, the next thing that is required to be successful is
Mhm.
systems,
Mhm.
discipline, structure. One
Mhm.
thing about the military, you know what? If I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning and I didn't feel like going to physical training, they aren't
Yeah.
going to care if I don't feel like it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And many times, like most people don't generally, like, even if you're a fitness nut, most people don't feel like getting up early to go work out. It's not
Mhm.
fun necessarily to go do that. Right. I think
Mhm.
anybody who tells you it's fun, they're lying to you. Right. That's not
Mhm.
true. They love the result of what they get out of doing it. Right.
Mhm.
And they're attaching meaning to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got to go regardless of how you feel. And if I don't go, if I let my feelings rue the day, that's where lots of people, when they get out of the military, myself included, gain a little bit of weight
Yeah.
if they're no longer putting the emphasis on it and taking the action
Yeah.
despite how they feel about it. You don't have a choice in the military. They make you do it.
Yeah.
Right. So when you want to accomplish something, there is something called discipline, which is really
Mm.
built around your systems and structure where you do it anyway.
Mhm.
The system doesn't care about how you feel. If you know, if Bernadette knows, if I keep doing podcast episodes, my channel is going to grow.
Mhm.
And then 2 weeks go by and she's done 10 episodes and not a single new subscriber. And she allows that letdown to keep her from doing the next one. When if she
Mhm.
would have just done one more,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
she would have had 300 that day that
Mhm.
joined, right?
Mhm.
Or 3,000 or whatever, right?
Mhm.
And any YouTuber or podcaster will tell you that it's an exponential increase as you keep doing it, right? But
Yeah.
you got to keep going. And if you allow the feelings to stop you, that's where you get
Mhm.
into trouble. You've got
Yeah.
to be able to have the discipline to move forward. And that's why it's so important to have people speaking your lives. That's like the third thing, if I can just mention that really quickly,
Yes. Yeah.
is you have to have some kind of guidance. You have to have mentorship, you have to have a coach, you have to have a friend or a parent or somebody who can look at it outside of your perspective and go, no, this is what you should be doing, or hey,
Mhm.
we're all blinders like this is how we look at life.
Yeah.
And even like, oh, I need coaches, right? I'm a certified coach, but I still need a coach,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's fine. Like that's okay because we all are like this. Like you could name a famous coach, right? Tony Robbins
Mhm.
still needs people who advise him,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's the best that ever did it. And that's
Mhm.
just how life works. So you got to have the baseline clarity. You got to have the systems, but you also got to like not try
Mhm.
to just do all this yourself.
Mhm.
It's not how
Yeah.
we were built. We weren't built to do things that way. We can be doing amazing things by ourselves, but typically you show me somebody who's successful and I'll show you somebody who had great advisors around them and people
Mhm.
that supported them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I agree. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. I've had those moments where I'm like,
Mhm.
nothing's picking up, and and I've had
Right. You
people
keep
tell
going.
me,
Mhm.
sorry, go ahead.
I said, yeah, you keep going. Right. You
I
just keep
do.
doing it
I
anyway.
do. Yeah. I've had people tell me, um, you're delivering really, really good content, but your, SEO, and I don't even know what that means. Like, search something up. What does it mean?
Search engine optimization.
Yeah, that, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I am not really looking at that. It's not that it's not important. I just prefer quality, the quality of
Hmm.
what I'm delivering. First, people are coming to me, so I'm doing something right that's outside of the box of the regular podcast or norm, right?
Hmm.
And I give people room to breathe. I give them freedom, right? I don't militarize, and this is how you're going to be on my podcast. This is what you need to share. I'm like, no, This is about you. I'm just in the passenger seat. You drive, but I'll guide. And I find people love that freedom. They love it. And they can share
Yeah.
anything.
It's why I like the podcast medium in general. It's
Yeah.
always a little bit free flowing. You can have
Yeah.
a purpose or a structure to your podcast, but I mean anything can happen
Yeah.
on something like this. That's the reason why a lot of people still like listening to radio.
Yeah.
If you're really good at radio, anything can happen because it's live,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it's just fun to do. And so I definitely can appreciate that. But at the same point, like you could, eventually just go, well, I'm kind of tired, and
Yeah.
then you're going to lose momentum. Like it's way easier to keep something in momentum than to start it back up.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know if that's ever happened to you. It's happened to me where I'm like, oh, I'm posting, I'm doing really
Yeah.
good. And then the kids or I got sick. And so I take a couple of days off from it. And then it takes me
Mm-hmm.
like 3 weeks to get back to it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like to get
Yep.
it back in there. So you got to
Yep.
have the structure of like, oh, I'm going to do this anyway. Right. No matter what, I'm going to keep moving forward. Right. Think of it like a salesperson.
Yeah.
Right. It's possible you could be the best salesperson at whatever it is you sell. Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And have 10 straight terrible sales calls. Like that you
Mm-hmm.
do everything you're supposed to do and don't make a sale. And then you go, I'm not going to pick up the phone again today. I'm just going to take it up. When number 11 was ready to buy from you. Right. And then 12 would have bought and 14, like you would have gone 6 straight sales.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But imagine you stopped at 10, even though you told
Mm-hmm.
yourself at the beginning of the day you were going to go to 20,
Mm-hmm.
but you
Yeah.
stopped at 10 because they were all no's.
Yeah.
And you let that run you. Again, what I'm suggesting is listen, I'm not saying you can't have feelings, right? We all have feelings. What I'm just
Yeah.
saying is that you should go anyway. You know what the process is. You know if you want to build your podcast, you got to put out podcasts consistently
Yeah.
and you just keep doing it. And some days you're going to have feelings, right? And you even have that feeling today. I don't know. Where you're like, I don't know if I really want to talk to this Justin guy. I don't know, right? But you're doing it anyway. That's what's going to make you successful is that you have the discipline to keep doing the content.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, what most look forward to is talking to guests.
Okay.
I don't
I was
care.
just using it for
Yeah.
instance. I didn't think that. You seem perfectly lovely. I'm sure you didn't feel that way, but I'm saying like some people
Yeah,
might go like, I don't feel like doing this today, right? But then you go do it
yeah,
anyway, right?
yeah, yeah.
I
That's
don't
what
feel
I
like
look
editing
forward
that
to.
video. Maybe it's the back office that you would maybe not as look forward to, right? But it's like, oh, I don't want to edit that and post it and do all the things, but you got to do it. You got to do it anyway,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah.
so that's the way. And any coach I've ever talked to, or any systems expert or consultant or
Mhm.
agency, they all go, nope, we got to release same time every week. Or you got to do the same activities.
Yeah,
These activities will drive to results, right? That's how it goes.
yeah. Consistency.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. And I think I heard a little bit of mindset in everything you're sharing. How
Hmm.
important is it to have a positive mindset?
Well, it's important. We all know
Mhm.
that. I think mindset can be everything. It can scale people down very, very quickly.
Mhm.
Um, because listen, we're only using so much of our brain power right now. That's just what they tell me anyway. I don't know that. I'm not a scientist, right? But our
Mhm.
emotions can really drive us. That's coming from a lot of sometimes your subconscious brain. But here's the thing: is that we do actually have control over those emotions. Um, like say sad or disappointed.
Mhm.
But that's just a feeling. Like you can
Mhm.
absolutely control how you feel in a given
Yeah.
moment, right? Have you ever had a moment when you're really feeling frustrated and down and maybe like,
Mhm.
oh, this is just, I can't do this. And then all of a sudden you can get a wave of motivation to go, what? I'm going to put my stuff on and I'm going to get going.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe out of necessity, maybe because that's just who you are, right? Doesn't matter. Sometimes eventually people are going to be pushed where you have to do something. But that's just an immediate decision that you made to go do
Mhm.
something.
Mhm.
But imagine you could cultivate and renew your mindset regularly. How much
Mhm.
easier is it to get up and be motivated when you've got the right mindset? I think it's very, very important. I don't want to dismiss that. I kind of feel like I did dismiss, like, oh, just do it anyway. Don't care about your mindset. But it absolutely will help you
Yeah.
to be able to go further and faster and cultivating a positive mindset. And usually that's just a reframing. Something
Mhm.
bad happens, it's really just more of an opportunity or something that you're learning, and you can
Mhm.
attach a different emotion to it. But
Mhm.
that's where that clarity is. Remember, I told you that was one of the ones that really matters. I mean, that's
Mhm.
where mindset exists. It's
Mhm.
got to be a deep foundation, or it's going to be really, really easy to derail you.
Yeah.
Um, if you have a soft foundation, then it doesn't matter what systems you're using, it'll get
Yeah.
come crumbling down.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, thank you for sharing. What are some common myths or mistakes that you've noticed within the line of work that you do?
The common mistakes are I'm building the event, therefore people will come to it. Right. That's probably the number one.
Yeah.
I think that I've met a ton of people with amazing programs, amazing
Mhm.
offers, and amazing ability to help people.
Mhm.
But they will say, oh, well, I've built the structure of the event and I'm ready for it. And it's an
Mhm.
amazing offer. So people are just going to flock to it. They're going to
Mhm.
depend on some mythical SEO, right? I'm with
Yeah.
you. I'm not a big SEO person.
Mhm.
I'm much more, I prefer the proactive approach.
Yeah.
You have to promote. If you don't have people at your event, you're not going to convert anybody,
Mhm.
right? So the biggest myth is that they're just going to come because it's an amazing event that you've got planned. Um,
Mhm.
you know, Russell Brunson, right, he runs Funnel Hacking Live every year,
Mhm.
which is an in-person one. They did it virtually during the COVID year, but um, they spend tons and tons of money on advertising, like
Mhm.
millions,
Mhm.
right, to get
Yeah.
people there. People know who he is. He's a brand at this point. Tony Robbins is a brand, but I still see
Mhm.
ads for Unleash the Power Within,
Mhm.
right? Every year, right? Because they know they've got to promote their stuff. I got a stadium to fill here,
Yeah.
and it's not going to get filled just because I'm Tony Robbins. Now it will kind of get filled, but it won't be filled to where he wants it without promoting it. And it's the same thing in events. You have to promote your event.
Mhm.
That I'll kind of give you like an alternate myth that goes with that, or kind of a paired myth, is that you have to have a big audience in order to
Mhm.
run one. So a lot of people
Yeah.
will throw up their hands and go, "This isn't for me because I'm not a big brand." Right. And I go like, "Well, that's crap." Right. That's not true.
Yeah.
If you have a good offer and you have an ability to help people, all you do is need to promote it. And there's certainly organic, and I'm not going to lie to you, it's easier if you've already got a 40,000 person list or channel or something, right? It's
Mhm.
always easier to do that.
Mhm.
The audience is currency for sure, but you can go and pay for traffic. You can run ads, right? And it'd be totally worth it. And by the way, an ad to get someone to come to your event is way better than having them book a call with you, right?
Mhm.
You're not going to spend nearly as much money on that ad
Mhm.
to have somebody come and get into your event. That's the number one, kind of takeaway. But let's say you don't want to spend money on ads, right? Because you're not sure. Maybe it's a new offer and you don't want to put money into something you're not sure about. Well, then you can go and borrow the traffic. You can go partner with other people who would love to be an affiliate with you.
Mhm.
Let's say I'm a fitness expert and I want to sell more of my fitness programs, help people lose weight. Well, I can go to somebody who maybe sells health products,
Mhm.
right? And they've got a channel of, 100,000 subscribers on Instagram, and they're an affiliate for all these health products, and go, hey, do you think
Mhm.
your audience would get a kick out of what I'm doing here? Do you think that they see value out of learning a little bit more about how to get in shape with the products that they're buying?
Mhm.
And cool, awesome. Well, let's partner up, and I would love to make you an affiliate of mine. And in exchange, we can create an affiliate program where anybody who comes to my stuff, I can give you a kickback, right? Or if it's just they think there'd be value, whatever, right? You don't have to own the traffic already.
Mhm.
It's always better if you've got a big one, but you can go set that up and be on channels pretty easily, right? You and I,
Mhm.
we met through the fact that you have a podcast, right? It's
Yeah.
okay. It's nothing wrong with that.
Mhm.
I don't have anything necessarily to sell. I just wanted to be here. But if I wanted to, we could have said, "Hey, let's partner up and make something happen, and let's get a
Mhm.
message to your people if you think there's value there."
Mhm.
And more than enough people are willing to do that if you're just willing to go put it out.
Yeah.
But you can certainly muscle up and go do it organically and sit posts and grow your audience and invite people there.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
anyway,
Yeah, I agree.
that's the myths that I see the biggest ones. It's one, I'm
Mhm.
just gonna people are gonna just show up, and then two, oh, I have to already have a huge following and be making $3 million a year
Yeah.
to be
Yeah.
successful. That's not
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's important to let the people we're serving speak. I think it's a common mistake. We let the ego take over. We let just our mind take over. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I'm going a bit touchy, meaning let people feel what you're giving them and let them have
Mhm.
an opinion. Accept feedback as a positive thing. What are your thoughts?
Right. No, that's why I love the event model, because that's the entire purpose of it is to
Mm,
let them be immersed in what you can do and make decisions for themselves. And so by
yeah.
the end of that experience, they are a clear yes or a clear no
Hmm.
about what they're doing. There's no need to do any kind of hard pressure sales tactics. It's just
Yeah.
invite them to the next step, and the people who are ready will take it.
Yeah. I
It's
agree.
not, we just did one with somebody who did a brand new offer. I mean, it's not like he'd not been in the online space before, but he was launching a different agency.
Hmm.
Invited people to come to his event, and 86% of the room applied to work with him on
Wow.
his new offer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he allowed them to come and see how it worked and
Hmm.
build some momentum towards it. And the people who said, yes, this is the way for me,
Hmm.
applied to work with him. And the ones like, listen, it was still 14% said no, right? That's
Hmm.
okay. No problem. Then now they're on the list. You can nurture them, right? Maybe they come to the next event. Maybe they
Yeah.
felt like they weren't, time or financially ready, and they'll come
Hmm.
to another one when they are ready. No
Yeah.
problem. But they're
Yeah.
in your list now, and now they know you way better than someone who they saw an ad and they just
Hmm.
watched a couple of YouTube videos. They actually experienced you,
Hmm.
right? So that's where yeah, you can give them a chance to breathe, and that's why the way we do it's very engaging at the same time. It's not
Yeah.
just a let's get up here and I talk and I got my whiteboard or my slides and you guys listen for the next 6 hours. No, no, no,
Hmm.
no. It's an engaging experience where we're actually getting stuff done and solving problems.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then people go, okay, yeah, I get it. This works for me.
Hmm.
Or hey, I'm not ready for this. No
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. So as we wrap up today's episode, what do you want me, also my audience, to get out of this episode?
I want your audience to know whatever the bottleneck is in
Hmm.
your business or your life, is chances are, and I want to raise my hand because I don't want anybody to think I'm talking at them, right? Chances are you're making it more complicated than it has to be,
Mm,
right? What I love about what I can do is that if we really are serious about it, you can go launch an event within a couple of weeks,
hmm.
right? You can certainly take your time with it or whatever, and you could go and test your offer and get absolute validation, or you can scale your offer with absolute confidence.
Yeah.
A couple weeks from now, be done, be over with it.
Hmm.
Um, it's just a matter of like what's the speed and what's the strategy you're using that will cut through that. I get told all the time, you had to have your website, and then you have to have an email sequence, and you have to have this and this and this and this, and you have to have this sales process, you have to have a follow-up system and texting, and it's all over the place, right? And it's great, and all those things are probably true, but are they really, right? Who says I
Mhm.
have to have all those things?
Mm,
Right?
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
probably much simpler than you're making it to be, to speak to your mindset question, right? Like
Yeah.
what's really true, right?
Mhm.
What if you didn't have to do all the things and there was one thing you could do that would actually get you what you want,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? That's the way I, so if they take away anything is that, listen, I'm not some rocket scientist. I'm not smarter than
Mhm.
everybody I meet or anything like that. I'm a pretty simple guy. Yes, I was an officer, right? But I'm Texas kind of through and through. I'm just me. I don't have big,
Mhm.
grandiose things. Just focused on a skill set and figured out what's the straightest path for me to get what I want and for me to help other people get what they want. And
Mhm.
I stumbled upon events. And I think events would work for anybody in any niche, in any market, doesn't matter. But
Mhm.
ask that question for yourself, right? What's the easiest path? Is it, should I start a podcast? Okay, do I have time? Stop complicating it. Hit record, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is
Yeah.
it, hey, I need to have more sales calls? Great, pick up the phone, start
Mhm.
dialing, right?
Mhm.
You want a different strategy? Okay, fine. Come talk to me if you want to do an event. That's great.
Mhm.
But don't overcomplicate it.
Mhm.
Most people, if you're not already at like $50,000 a month in your business, if that's a business thing that you're doing, you don't need a whole bunch of things. You need one offer, you need one attraction system and one conversion system. I'm suggesting we make all of those the event,
Mhm.
right? And because I like it simple,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But if you have at least one of those things, you've got a business and you're good, right?
Mhm.
Don't overcomplicate it. If you want to lose weight, well, you want to get in better health, right? There's usually a simple step you could take
Mhm.
to go do
Yeah.
that. What's the simplest path to get what you want?
Yeah.
And then question everything, question it all, right? Hey, you have to have this, you have to have that. Like, who says,
Yeah.
right? Who
Yeah.
says you have to do that? What if you only needed this?
Hmm.
That's the way I kind of like to look at it. And so
Yeah.
that's my takeaway. Is that good? Is that a good one for you?
Oh, that's excellent because that's what I'm doing. I
Okay,
don't have a website yet, but
good.
I have Gmail, I have Messenger. People can
Yeah,
get a hold of me. I
that's
I
true.
I will have a website when I'm ready, but until then,
Yeah,
while I'm hustling doing it by myself, I'm cutting myself the extra stress and get the contents out and the people coming in to share. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, just keep going. Like, keep going forward. Don't make it complicated. You don't need a website. Websites are great. I've got a
Yeah.
website, but
Yeah.
it's pretty basic. If you go to my website, right, you'll see it's just a simple thing, right?
Mhm.
It's a, hey, this is what we do. Do you like that or not? That's it. Right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
No
Awesome.
guesswork on it.
Yeah. So I have two more questions as we wrap up. The first one I
Okay.
ask every guest, what is the meaning of life for you?
The meaning of life. Well, so I come from a biblical mindset, right? So that's kind of my worldview.
Mhm,
Our lives are meant for, worshiping God,
mhm,
right? But we all have a purpose to play within that.
mhm,
I think that we are meant as a social, we are called to multiply. That's the first thing that God told us to do. And
mhm,
so we need to be able to multiply. That means, if you're able to, that means family. That means reach. That means helping other people, right?
mhm,
It's exactly part of the mission of what my business Charge Forward is meant to do. We are called to multiply. I'm
mhm,
running events to help people multiply their reach, multiply their ability to create impact.
mhm,
That's the meaning of life to me, is that you're called to multiply, and you got to ask yourself, are you holding your talent? Are you holding your abilities and protecting it to where
mhm,
you're hoping that nobody takes it from you, right? Or are you actually putting something out there and actually doing something in the world, right? If
yeah,
you're like, if you have the ability to have kids, you should have kids, right? And serve them
mhm,
well, right?
mhm,
And be the best parent you can be and bring more and more great people into the world. If you've
mhm,
got a business, you should be getting that in front of everybody and serving them in the best way that they can be served,
yeah,
right? If you've got relationships in your life, which I hope everybody does, because we're pretty social creatures. If you don't have any, you're probably having a hard time,
mhm,
introvert or extrovert, but you should be serving those relationships well.
yeah,
It should be multiplied, right?
mhm,
And not saved, right? That's just
mhm,
how I approach it. So that's meaning of life
mhm.
to me. Is that a good answer for you?
Yes,
That
it
answer the
is.
question?
Yeah, there's no right or wrong answer.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Last question for you. I know you mentioned your website. Where else can my listeners find you?
Yeah, so you can certainly find me. My name is, you can call me Jay if you want, but my name is Justin Boyum on all the channels. So you can find me on Facebook or LinkedIn. But if you want to go and learn a little bit more about what we do, and you want to try to you want to, explore the idea of having a 6 or 7 figure revenue day in your business, head over to thechargeforward.com. So that's the word the chargeforward.com, and you can see a little video about what we do. And if you're interested in learning more, there's a button right there on the page.
Awesome. Well, Justin, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for all you do, and thank you for being on the podcast with me today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Bernadette. It's been so much fun. Super
Yes, it
cool.
has.
Magic of
Time
the internet.
fly.
I can talk to one of my Canadian friends, even though I'm still here in Texas, right? So it's super
Yes,
cool.
yes, yes. Well, come back anytime. Thank you again.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon.
Yeah.